I was 27 when the walls of my Brooklyn apartment started whispering numbers at me, like they were rehearsing a threat they didn't want to say out loud. The winter light over Bushwick was pale and patient, the kind that made coffee taste darker and footsteps sound closer. My name is Greta Snow, Unit 3B, third floor walk-up, 2 locked windows, 1 thin radiator, and a view of the brick spine of the building next door. It wasn't fancy, but the floors creaked like old friends, and the kitchen had a stubborn plant that refused to die. I'd been there 4 years. I had a job that paid on time most of the time, a beat-up blue bike, and a roommate named Kenna who collected cast iron pans like they were baseball cards. Rent was the law that governed everything. Because in Brooklyn, rent isn't just a bill. It's a weather system. It decides who you are allowed to be. The envelope came on a Tuesday, tape-streaked and clumsy, like someone had sealed it with impatience. The return address was the property management office, although everyone knew there was no office, just a slot in a metal door on Montrose, where your checks disappeared like offerings. I slid it open with my thumbnail. My breath fogged the window. "Dear Tenant," it began, because names were apparently too expensive now. Due to market adjustments, my rent would increase by $900 starting next month. 900, not 9, not 90. $900. I read it again to make sure my eyes weren't drunk. I sat on the couch, and the couch seemed to shrink, like it knew we couldn't afford each other anymore. Kenna came in from a bakery run, powdered sugar on her coat sleeve. She saw my face. "What is it?" I handed her the letter. Her eyebrows climbed, then vanished beneath her beanie. "This is illegal," she said. I said. "I don't think," she said. She stopped herself, because upstairs neighbors fight and walls lean in closer when you say certain words. "What if it's not?" I said, already bargaining with the universe, already rummaging through the junk drawer of my brain for a way to make impossible math work. I tried to calculate, to rearrange the pieces of my life like furniture. Cut coffee, cut the gym, cut weekends, cut sleep, cut joy. The numbers laughed. They were smug little tyrants. The letter said we had 2 weeks to confirm. It also said, in a line that tried to sound bland and failed, that refusal could impact tenancy status. Impact tenancy status. That phrase sat in my mouth like a coin. I'd lived through cheap threats before. What I wasn't prepared for was the next one. On Thursday, a man in a leather jacket I'd never seen before knocked on 3B. He was tall and severe, and smelled faintly of a cologne that had opinions. "Building manager," he said. No name. No smile. He had another letter, this one shorter. "Sign," he said, pointing at the bottom. Kenna put her shoulder behind me. "What is this?" she asked. He tilted his head like the question was cute. "Confirmation of the new rent." "We didn't agree," I said. "Not yet," he said. "Yet," Kenna repeated, like it tasted bad. He looked past us into the apartment, eyes flicking over the stack of books, the leaning framed poster, the plant that refused to die. "Fire escape looks blocked," he said. "It's not," I said. He shrugged. "Sure. Is this place rent stabilized?" Kenna asked, because she had a folder of tabs open in her brain, and one of them was labeled, "Know Your Rights." He smiled without humor. "Not your concern. It is actually," she said. He leaned closer. "Listen," he said quietly. "Everybody's moving. You're lucky you're even being offered to stay. You don't want to make trouble." The hallway swallowed his footsteps after he left. Silence made itself comfortable. Kenna turned to me. "We need help," she said. But I didn't want a crusade. I wanted to keep my home. I wanted to put my head under the pillow and wake up to a letter that apologized for being a joke. That night, I slept badly, dreams tangled with numbers and locks and fire escapes that led nowhere. At 3 a.m., I made tea and sat on the cold floor. The radiator hissed. I thought about how, in the last storm, our ceiling had leaked, and no one came for 4 days. I thought about the time the downstairs mailbox had been pried open, and our checks had been lost. I thought about the way the building had started to look shinier on the outside as the tenants got quieter. In the morning, I called the number on the letter. It rang into a hole. I left my name and unit. No one returned my call. I posted in the building group chat, which had been mostly complaints about laundry and someone's loud blender. Did anyone else get a market adjustment letter? I wrote. Within minutes, dots started typing like raindrops. Maya in 1. Yes, $750. Raif in 2. C. $1,100. Mr. Ortiz in 4. D. They can't do this, right? Jenny in 3. A. I'm crying at my desk. A flood. Fear tastes like metal. It also tastes like community when you add enough voices. Kenna brought me a highlighter. Let's document every single thing, she said. Dates, conversations, photos, screenshots. The word evidence felt heavy and ridiculous for something that was supposed to be simple. But we started anyway. I photographed the letter, the envelope's misleading stamp. I photographed the peeling paint and the busted mailbox and the radiator's tantrum. Kenna typed up a timeline. We were building a little museum of our own suffering. At lunch, I walked to the tenant's union office 2 stops away. A volunteer named Iris let me in. Her desk was a paper avalanche. She had the kind of calm that makes you think she's seen worse storms and survived all of them. I showed her the letter. She scanned it, then looked up with a small, tired smile. They're bluffing, she said. How do you know? She pointed to a paragraph with innocent punctuation. This building is stabilized. They can't raise it like this. They especially can't do it as retaliation. Hope's play. I felt a sudden coil of heat unwinding in my chest. Retaliation for what? I asked. Iris shrugged. Existing. Breathing. Asking for repairs. Take your pick. She gave me a pamphlet, the color of caution tape, and a list of attorneys who smelled like affordable. She also gave me a sentence that would become a kind of armor. If they threaten you, she said, threaten them back with the law. When I left, the February sky had ripened into a reckless blue. I texted the building chat. Good news, I wrote. Rent stabilized. We have rights. The dots started again. Maya sent a prayer hands emoji. Mr. Ortiz sent a gif of a tiny dog barking at a lion and winning. Jenny sent a string of exclamation points. That night, the hallway light flickered like a nervous eye. Someone had taped a notice to the bulletin board. Renovations coming soon, it announced. The photos showed a different building. White cabinets we'd never meet. A gym that would not be for us. The next day, I found another letter under our door. It said we were in breach because of an unauthorized sublet. We didn't have one. They were trying different doors to get us out. Kenna swore softly. The kind of swear that's half prayer. This is war, she said. I don't want a war, I said. You have one, she said. I called the number again. This time a woman answered. Her voice was smooth and slow, like a lake that hides its depth. We've received your files, she said. What files? Your documentation, she said. We're reviewing. I had sent nothing. The chill in my spine felt like a zipper. Who are you? I asked. Property relations, she said, as if that were a real department and not a spell. We expect timely compliance. What you're doing is illegal, I said, and the word felt less ridiculous this time. She paused. People who make trouble often find themselves without a home, she said mildly. Then she hung up. I stood very still. Kenna watched my face. What? I told her. She exhaled, cheeks flushing. We keep documenting, she said. We get everyone together. I nodded, but fear was a creature that sat heavy on my chest. It whispered worst-case scenarios in a voice that sounded like mine. I pictured packing the apartment into boxes that didn't fit the life we'd built. I pictured the blankness of starting over. I pictured my plant dying in a new window. That's how small fear can make you. Small enough to cry about a plant. At midnight, I heard a noise in the hallway. Feet, whispering. I opened the door a crack. 2 men I didn't know were peeling our names off the buzzer with a knife. They did it carefully, like it was surgery. They replaced Greta, Kenna 3B, with vacant 3B. My heart slammed so hard it knocked into my ribs twice. I snapped a photo with my phone. The flash startled them. Hey, I said, louder than I meant to. They looked at me like a problem. One of them smiled. Maintenance, he said. He dropped the old label on the ground and walked away. I picked it up and put it in my evidence folder. I closed the door, locked it, and then slid the deadbolt because fear needed to hear the click. I sat on the floor and stared at the folder. It already had weight. I thought about Iris's steady eyes. I thought about the group chat buzzing into life with people I knew only by the way their names looked on a screen. Maybe fear was a crowd moving in the same direction. Maybe that was all power was. The next morning, I taped a sheet of paper to the lobby wall. It said, in big letters, Tenants meeting Saturday 10 a.m. Roof. I wrote my number at the bottom. Within an hour, someone had written under it, the roof is locked. Under that, someone else wrote, I have the key Maya 1A. Under that, someone else wrote, bring coffee. Under that, in a childish scrawl that had to be the super's grandson, bring donuts. I smiled. For the first time in days, at 9:37 a.m. on Saturday, I carried a cheap box of donuts up 3 flights and then one more door to the roof. The February air was bright and thin, and Manhattan's skyline looked like a rumor. Maya was there in a puffer coat, keyring jangling like sleigh bells. Mr. Ortiz had a thermos and a folding chair. Jenny's eyeliner could cut a man. Raif brought a clipboard. Kenna brought her stubbornness. I brought the folder. We huddled around a milk crate like it was a boardroom table. I cleared my throat, and all their eyes found me. I was terrified. I was also ready. Hi, I said. I'm Greta, 3B. They tried to erase us. Let's write ourselves back. The roof door creaked behind us, boots on concrete. A shadow cut across the milk crate. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. The leather jacket. The manager's cologne arrived like a warning. He smiled at our little circle, as if we were a cute art project. What's going on here? He asked, voice pleasant and poisonous. Kenna squeezed my arm. I held up the folder. Documentation, I said. And a plan. He stepped closer, on the edge of that smile, and said, you're going to regret this. I felt the fear try to climb back into my throat. I swallowed it. Then the roof door swung again, fast, loud, and another figure stepped out, wind tangling her gray hair, a canvas tote slung like a weapon. It was Iris from the tenants' union, uninvited but exactly on time. She looked at the manager, then at us, and said, calm as a bell. Actually, you are. I didn't know courage could sound like a canvas tote bag hitting concrete. Iris's voice cut through the icy air with that mix of calm and certainty that made the manager's smirk fade. You're going to regret this, he'd said. But she didn't even blink. He tried to play it off, laughing under his breath. Ma'am, this is a private building meeting. You're trespassing. Actually, Iris said, pulling out her phone and snapping a photo of him, I'm here on behalf of the tenants, which makes this very public. The man stepped back, nostrils flaring, his hands curling into the pockets of his leather jacket. You think the law's on your side? We own this place. Iris didn't raise her voice. Not the tenants' rights. He glared at me as if memorizing my face for later. This isn't over. No, I said, my pulse a drum in my throat. It's just starting. He left, the metal door slamming shut behind him. For a moment, none of us moved. The skyline watched in silence. Then, Mr. Ortiz clapped his hands once, sharp and loud. Okay, he said, we fight. That's how it started on a cold roof with coffee, donuts, and fear pretending to be resolve. We divided the work. Raif offered to call the city housing office. Jenny, who worked in marketing, said she'd help us get media attention if things got serious. Kenna and I would handle the documentation and build a paper trail thick enough to bury them in. Iris stayed with us for an hour, explaining everything, the legal loopholes, the timelines, the retaliation clauses, the tricks landlords use to push people out of rent-stabilized units. It wasn't a pep talk, it was war strategy. When she left, she pressed her card into my hand. They'll come at you harder now. Don't let them isolate you. I won't, I said, though my hands were shaking. Back in our apartment, the place felt different. The air had a pulse. Kenna was already typing up notes from the meeting, while I organized our evidence folder into color-coded sections: letters, threats, building violations, photos. You know, she said, this is the first time I've felt like we might actually win. I smiled, tired but wired. Or at least make them sweat. That night, I got the first call, an unknown number. Hello? Static. Then a voice I didn't recognize, low and amused. You really like attention, huh, Miss Snow? Who is this? Click. The silence afterward was the kind that gets into your bones. Kenna looked up from her laptop when she saw my face. What? Nothing, I lied. But sleep didn't come easy. Every creak in the hallway sounded like a threat rehearsing its lines. By morning, someone had left a notice taped to our door: unauthorized gathering on property premises. Future infractions may result in termination of lease. No signature, no contact info. I took a picture of it for the folder. Kenna leaned over my shoulder. Termination of lease? That's rich. We're stabilized, remember? Yeah, I said. But the fear still crept in. By noon, Maya texted the group chat. Got word managers filing a nuisance claim on 2C and 3B. A nuisance claim. That was the oldest trick in the book, claiming tenants were disruptive or dangerous to justify eviction. Raif sent 3 furious messages back to back. Jenny replied with, good. Let them try. The press loves a David versus Goliath story. That gave me an idea. That afternoon, I reached out to a journalist I'd met during a City Hall internship years ago. Her name was Erin, and she specialized in housing issues. I sent her everything: the letters, the photos, the voicemail, the vacant 3B label. Within an hour, she wrote back, this could be big. Can I come by tomorrow? When she arrived, Erin was all business: recorder, notepad, the works. She walked through the building with us, photographing cracks in walls and exposed pipes, the peeling paint, the fire escape that barely opened. Tenants peeked out from behind doors like ghosts testing daylight. They're targeting you, she said to me quietly. You're the one organizing. Guess I have a big mouth. Good, she said. Keep it open. The article went live 2 days later. Brooklyn tenants fight back. Rent-stabilized residents face illegal evictions. Our building's brick facade was in the header photo, my name quoted halfway through. The group chat exploded. Messages, clapping emojis, fire emojis. Then, around midnight, my phone started buzzing again. Unlisted number. You think the press makes you safe? The voice said this time. Who is this? Just remember you started this. Click. The next day, the power went out. Not just for me, every tenant in the building. The lights died mid-morning. The fridge clicked off. The hallways fell dark. Kenna and I went downstairs to find Mr. Ortiz yelling at the super. It's maintenance, the super shouted, sweat on his forehead. At 10 in the morning on a weekday? I said. He didn't meet my eyes. Just following orders. I recorded the conversation on my phone. By evening, the story had updated online. Tenants claim retaliation, following press exposure. The comments section was a war zone, half support, half trolls. But support outweighed them, and soon a local TV station wanted an interview. That night, the building gathered again, this time in the dim hallway because the roof door had mysteriously been padlocked. Everyone looked tired but fierce. This isn't just about rent anymore, Maya said. This is about being bullied out of our homes. Kenna looked at me. You ready to be the face of this? I thought about my quiet life before all this, the simple rhythm of rent and work and coffee. I thought about how small fear had made me. Then I looked around at the faces lit by phone screens, at the people who had stopped being neighbors and started being soldiers. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. We took a group photo, dozens of us crowded into one frame, holding up our eviction letters like battle flags. I sent it to Erin. By morning, it was on every social feed in the city. The management company's inbox was flooded, their phone lines jammed, and that's when the real retaliation began. Someone keyed my bike. Kenna found her door lock jammed with glue. Maya got an anonymous note that said, "Move out while you can." But the worst was yet to come. Because 3 days later, I came home from work to find our apartment door wide open, hinges broken, papers scattered, drawers pulled out like empty mouths. The evidence folder was gone. When I saw the door hanging half open, I froze. The hallway smelled like dust and adrenaline. The edges of the broken frame looked raw, the way wood looks when it's been split by force, not accident. "Kenna?" I called, my voice thin and shaking. No answer. I stepped inside carefully, heart hammering. The living room looked ransacked, drawers overturned, couch cushions gutted, our coffee table flipped. The plant in the window lay on its side, soil spilling across the radiator like a tiny crime scene. "Kenna?" Then she emerged from the hallway, face pale, holding a broom like a weapon. "They took it," she said. "The folder?" She nodded. "All of it. Every photo, every note, every copy of every letter. They didn't even touch the laptop, just the folder." For a second, I couldn't breathe. All the nights of sorting, documenting, labeling, all gone. "Do you think it was him?" I whispered. Kenna didn't need to ask who. Of course it was him, he probably sent those creeps himself. I crouched down, picking through the mess, as if the folder might reappear if I cared enough. But it was gone, vanished like it had never existed. I called the police. They came an hour later, two tired officers who smelled faintly of coffee and disinterest. "No forced entry," one said, though the door looked like it had been kicked open by God himself. "We heard it," Kenna said. "Our neighbors did too." The cop shrugged. "Could have been a locksmith. You got renter's insurance?" "That's not the point," I said. "They stole evidence." "Evidence of what?" "Illegal rent hikes, threats, harassment." The other officer sighed and scribbled half-heartedly in his notebook. "Look, ma'am, if it's a civil dispute, you'll want to talk to housing court. We can file a report, but unless you saw who did it..." I cut him off. "Just file it." After they left, Kenna sank onto the floor, face buried in her hands. "They want us scared." "They've succeeded," I said quietly. But fear was turning into something else now, something sharper. That night, I sent an email to Erin, the journalist. I told her what happened, attached the police report, and included screenshots of the threats we'd received. She replied within minutes. "Stay put. I'm coming first thing in the morning." Sleep didn't happen. The apartment felt haunted. Every sound amplified the creak of pipes, the hiss of the radiator, the faint hum of the city outside. By morning, Erin arrived with coffee, her eyes blazing. "They broke in? That's retaliation. Full stop. You need legal counsel immediately." "Iris connected us with a lawyer," Kenna said, rubbing her temples. "But it's slow. We can't wait for slow." Erin paced the room. "You don't need slow, you need pressure. Public pressure. Do you have digital copies of the evidence?" I blinked, and then I smiled. "Kenna backed up everything," I said. Kenna grinned tiredly. "Google Drive, baby." "I'm paranoid. Not stupid." We pulled up the files, photos, letters, audio recordings, even the video of the men changing our name on the buzzer. Erin whistled softly. "This is gold. Give me permission to publish every detail." "Do it," I said. That night, Erin's updated story dropped like a bomb. Tenant's evidence stolen. After reporting illegal rent hikes, management denies wrongdoing. The photo at the top showed me and Kenna in front of the broken door. My expression was halfway between fury and exhaustion. The story exploded. Comments, retweets, messages from strangers, offering legal advice, donations, solidarity. The kind of noise that gets noticed. By the next morning, the landlord's name was trending locally. That's when he called. "Miss Snow," he said, his tone smooth and oily. "You've made quite a mess. You broke into my apartment." Now, he chuckled. "You can't prove that." "You sure about that?" I asked. "Because there's security camera footage in the lobby now. One of the tenants installed it." A pause, then a low, amused hum. "You think anyone cares about your little story? This building's being sold. In 6 months there won't be a 3B. Then, I guess we'll make it the most famous 3B in Brooklyn." However, he hung up. That night, Flyers appeared under everyone's doors, notice of renovation. The date was set for 3 weeks later. Maya texted, "They're fast-tracking demolition permits. They're really doing it." I felt something break inside me, not fear, not sadness, but clarity. They were betting we'd fold before the storm. Instead, we built one. Kenna and I started filming testimonies from tenants, stories of intimidation, unlivable conditions. Jenny edited the footage into a short documentary and titled it, "The Rent That Ate Brooklyn." We uploaded it. Within 48 hours, it hit 50,000 views. Donations poured in through a link Maya set up. Lawyers volunteered. A city council member tweeted the video, tagging the housing authority. Then, a week later, we got the letter that changed everything. Housing court hearing scheduled case No. 11845 vs. Snow et al. They were suing us for defamation. Kenna threw the letter on the table. "They're trying to bleed us out with legal fees." I looked at the name on the top, the Landlord's LLC, faceless and smug. "Then, let's make it public." I called Erin. "They're suing us," I said. She swore under her breath. "Perfect. That means discovery, which means they'll have to open their books." Kenna grinned. "You're serious?" "Oh, I'm serious," Erin said. "You wanted a story? This is it." We gathered on the roof again that weekend, the same spot where it all began. The city stretched below us, indifferent, but beautiful. Maya raised a paper cup of coffee like a toast. "To 3B, she said. "And to making noise." We laughed, but it was nervous laughter, the kind that hides exhaustion. When the wind picked up, I felt the folder's absence in my chest again. "Do you think we can win?" I asked Iris quietly. She looked at me, her eyes steady. "Winning isn't always keeping the apartment. Sometimes it's making sure they never try this again." That night, as I was locking the door, I heard a faint sound in the hall. Footsteps. Slow, measured. I peered through the peephole. The manager was standing there, smiling at the door like he could see through it. Then, in one smooth motion, he slipped something under the crack and walked away. I waited until he was gone, then picked it up. It was a photo me on the roof, holding the folder, surrounded by tenants. Written on the back, in neat block letters, "See you in court." But what chilled me wasn't the message. It was the date in the corner, taken 2 weeks before the folder was stolen. The photo sat on our kitchen table all night like a snake coiled and waiting. Kenna stared at it, jaw tight, coffee forgotten. 2 weeks before the break-in, she whispered. "He's been watching us, maybe even inside the building." I didn't want to say it out loud, but I already knew. Someone had given him access. The next morning, I called Iris. She came over immediately, carrying a legal pad and a look that could cut marble. When I showed her the photo, she exhaled sharply. "He's escalating. That means he's scared," she said. "Scared people make mistakes." I wanted to believe that, but fear still sat in my gut like ice. "He has someone feeding him information," I said. "Photos like this don't come out of nowhere." Kenna nodded. "It's someone in the building." That thought hung heavy between us. We'd trusted everyone, shared donuts, stories, tears, and now, someone was selling us out. Iris looked around the apartment, then lowered her voice. "Don't confront anyone yet. Paranoia helps you survive. For now, stay quiet, keep documenting, and prepare for court." I glanced at the cracked doorframe, still unpatched since the break-in. "Quiet doesn't seem like an option anymore." She gave a dry smile. "Then be loud strategically." After she left, I pulled up every message in the building chat. I scrolled, scanning for tone shifts, hesitations, missing replies. Nothing obvious, just the same exhausted, angry tenants. But my gut said one of them was a double agent. Kenna leaned over my shoulder. "You're spiraling." "I'm analyzing," I said. "Same thing." We sat in silence for a while. The radiator hissed, the city moved outside, and I could almost hear Brooklyn breathing thick with sirens, pigeons, ambition. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number again. "The roof's not as private as you think." No emoji, no punctuation, just the words. I showed Kenna. Her hand trembled. We should move, she whispered. Before something worse happens, but I shook my head. That's what he wants. That evening, we met with the tenants again, this time at a cafe 2 blocks away. No roof, no building, no spies. Just chipped mugs, dim lights, and the smell of espresso strong enough to feel like courage. Everyone looked exhausted, but defiant. Maya spread out a folder. I talked to a friend at City Housing. They're launching an investigation. The press coverage forced their hand. A ripple of hope went through the group. Also, she continued, someone on the management side leaked documents. They've been falsifying maintenance records, listing renovations that never happened to justify rent hikes. Kenna sat up. You're kidding. I wish I was, Maya said. They claimed to have replaced all the plumbing last summer, but there are invoices for jobs that don't exist. I felt a spark of something new Victory's scent, faint but real. We can use that in court, I said. Jenny nodded. If we can prove they fabricated records, that's fraud. That night, I stayed up late, writing statements, piecing together the story of what they'd done. My hands ached, but I couldn't stop. Every word felt like reclaiming something they'd stolen: our dignity, our space, our right to stay. Around 2 a.m., the hallway light flickered again. I froze. Then, faintly, a soft knock. I opened the door just a crack. Maya stood there, eyes wide. Come with me, she whispered. I followed her downstairs, past the peeling wallpaper and the stuttering light. She led me into the basement, the one locked with a heavy chain. Only the super had the key, but tonight, the lock hung open. What's going on? I asked. She turned on her phone flashlight. Look. The basement was filled with boxes, hundreds of them, each labeled by apartment number. She opened one. Inside were files, tenant applications, copies of IDs, rent checks, even photos of interiors. And in the corner, under a tarp, was a stack of broken furniture and framed photos. I pulled one out. It was ours. The photo Kenna and I took the day we moved in, laughing on the stoop. He's been spying, Maya said quietly. Not just on you, on all of us. I took a step back, bile rising in my throat. Kenna's voice echoed behind us. Oh my God. She'd followed, still barefoot from bed. We looked around every file, every image. A violation. He's keeping a dossier on every tenant, Maya said. Eviction plans. Notes on who's likely to fight, who's likely to fold. I picked up one folder, labeled Snow, K, 3B. Inside were typed pages, notes, quotes from our group chat, even a photo of me at the cafe that morning. He's inside the chat, Kenna whispered. I took a deep breath. Then we shut it down. Now, we left the basement with proof, the files, photos, everything. The next day, Erin met us at a diner near the courthouse. She looked at the stack and exhaled. You realize this could turn the case completely. Good, I said. But you need to be careful, she warned. If this gets out before court, they'll claim you stole private property. Kenna rolled her eyes. They broke into our apartment. I know, Erin said. But they play dirtier than you think. Let me handle the timing. That afternoon, I walked home alone. The street was buzzing with weekend life, kids running, music from windows, dogs pulling leashes. Brooklyn was loud and alive. Then I turned the corner and stopped cold. A moving truck was parked outside our building. 2 men were carrying boxes down the steps. Hey, I called. What's going on? One of them looked up, expression blank. 3B's being cleared out. My stomach dropped. That's my apartment, I said. He shrugged. Orders from management. I ran up the stairs, heart pounding. The door was wide open again, our furniture half gone, our books boxed. On the kitchen counter sat a folded piece of paper. Notice of termination. Effective immediately. Kenna arrived minutes later, out of breath. They're moving our stuff, how? They didn't even wait for court, I said, voice shaking. They're pretending we're already evicted. She grabbed her phone and started filming. No more hiding, she said. Outside, Maya joined us, shouting at the movers. Neighbors poured into the hallway, filming, yelling, blocking the stairs. Someone started chanting. "This is illegal." It grew louder, voices blending, rising, filling the building with sound. The manager appeared at the bottom of the staircase, red-faced and furious. "Everybody back inside." I stepped forward. "You first." The cameras caught everything: his threats, his lies, his arrogance. By the next morning, the videos had gone viral. News vans lined the street. Protesters held signs reading, "Justice for 3B," and "Stop illegal evictions." But even as the crowd grew, even as the story spread, I couldn't shake one question: who was feeding him our moves? Because that night, while I was scrolling through messages of support, a new text appeared from an unknown number. "You're making history, Greta. But remember, every hero needs a betrayal." When that text came through, I stared at it until the words seemed to breathe. "Every hero needs a betrayal." Kenna read it over my shoulder. "What the hell does that mean?" I didn't answer right away. My brain was a storm of faces: neighbors, allies, friends, anyone who might have been feeding him information. The protest outside was still roaring. Through the window, I could hear chants echoing off the brick. "Justice for 3B, no more evictions." But the noise didn't comfort me anymore. It felt like a stage, and someone behind the curtain was pulling strings. I texted Iris, "We've got a leak. I think someone inside's working with him." Her reply was instant. "Find out who." Quietly. So I started watching. That night, we gathered in Maya's apartment to plan next steps. The walls were covered in sticky notes, timelines, and screenshots. Erin had joined us too, recording B-roll for her next segment. Kenna was pacing, talking about the upcoming hearing. Maya was outlining talking points. Everyone was focused, except one person. Raif sat near the window, eyes flicking down to his phone every few seconds, thumbs moving fast. I told myself I was being paranoid. But then I noticed he wasn't in our group chat anymore. The app showed his name grayed out. When I asked, he shrugged. "Had to delete it, too risky." Something in his tone made me uneasy. 2 hours later, after everyone left, Erin pulled me aside. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," I said. "Something's off." "Then listen to your gut," she said. "It's been right so far." That night, I barely slept. My phone buzzed at 2:47 a.m., a notification from an unknown email address. The subject line read, "Thought you should see this." The attachment was a photo, grainy, but clear enough. It showed me and Kenna at the protest that morning. The angle was high, like from a window. And next to me, blurred but unmistakable, was Raif standing a few feet behind, talking to the building manager. I didn't wake Kenna. I just sat there in the glow of the screen, feeling something cold and old settle into my chest. By dawn, I had a plan. When Kenna woke up, I told her everything. She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "You sure?" "No," I admitted. "But I'm sure enough." We decided to test it. At the next tenants meeting, I brought up a fake idea. "What if we protest at the management office next Tuesday? Maybe show up with signs, cameras, make it loud." Everyone murmured, excited. Raif nodded slowly, then checked his phone again. We ended the meeting, and Kenna and I went home. We didn't tell anyone it was fake. The next day, Maya texted, "They just barricaded the office entrance. Security everywhere." Did someone leak? Bingo. Kenna slammed her fist on the counter. "Unbelievable. He's been one of us since day one." I sat down, exhausted. Not one of us, one of them. Later that afternoon, I met Iris at a small diner near court. I showed her the photo and explained what happened. She exhaled through her nose. Classic infiltration tactic. He probably offered him money or threatened him. What do? We turn it around. If he's the leak, let him leak what we want. Her eyes gleamed. Feed him bait. And so we did. That weekend, Kenna and I crafted a new rumor that we'd discovered a hidden clause in the lease that made every illegal eviction void. We whispered it to the chat, just loud enough for Raif to hear. Sure enough, 2 days later, the landlord's lawyer filed a motion to dismiss based on tenant misinformation. Exactly the trap we'd set. We brought the filing to Erin. She laughed, delighted. They just proved they've been monitoring you illegally. Within 48 hours, the story was everywhere again. Leaked emails suggest landlord spying on tenants. Now, the tide was shifting. The city housing department called Iris. They were opening a formal investigation. The landlord's name was in headlines every day. But the closer we got to victory, the more dangerous it became. That evening, as Kenna and I returned home from court prep, we found our apartment door ajar again, but this time, nothing was taken. Just a single piece of paper taped to the fridge. It said, "You're clever. But remember, buildings can burn." Kenna backed away, eyes wide. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise," I said quietly. We called the police. Again. Same 2 officers, same tired sighs. "We'll make a note," one said. "Make a note?" Kenna snapped. "Someone threatened to burn down our building." The cop shrugged. "No names, no fingerprints, could be a prank." When they left, I locked every window, every door, checked the smoke alarms twice. That night, sleep didn't come. The fear wasn't the sharp kind anymore, it was dull, constant, like background radiation. Around 3 a.m., I smelled something faint, smoke. I shot up. Kenna did too. The stairwell was filled with haze. Someone had set fire to the trash bins downstairs. Maya was already yelling, pulling the alarm. The building turned into chaos. By the time the fire department arrived, the flames were out, but the message was clear. This wasn't random. Erin showed up minutes later, camera rolling. "They tried to intimidate you," she said. "They tried to kill us," I corrected. The next morning, the city inspector declared the building unsafe until repairs were made. They wanted everyone out temporarily. But we knew what that meant. "They're going to gut it while we're gone," Maya said. Kenna shook her head. "We're not leaving. They'll arrest you," Erin warned. "Then film it," I said. That afternoon, we barricaded 3B. We nailed plywood across the door, taped signs on the windows. "We leave here. Illegal eviction in progress." Neighbors joined us, forming a wall of bodies on the stoop. Police arrived within the hour, sirens low, tension thick. The manager showed up too, hiding behind his lawyer. He looked up at me through the window and smiled. "Still think you can win?" I smiled back. "Already did." Because just then, Iris and Erin arrived, followed by 2 officials from the city's housing bureau, cameras rolling, microphones raised. The lawyer froze. Iris handed them the documents we'd found in the basement, the files, the false invoices, the proof. One of the officials turned to the landlord. "We need to talk." The crowd erupted in cheers. Kenna hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. But even as I smiled, I glanced across the street and saw Raif watching from the shadows, his expression unreadable. He raised his phone, took a picture of me, and disappeared into the crowd. For the next few days, Brooklyn buzzed like a live wire. Our story was everywhere: news feeds, podcasts, radio. I couldn't walk to the corner store without someone recognizing me. "You're the girl from 3B, they'd say. "The one who fought back." It felt strange me, Greta Snow, accidental activist. But fame doesn't keep your rent paid. It doesn't keep you safe either. The investigation went public. City Housing froze the building's demolition permits, citing pending fraud review. The manager vanished from sight. His office number was disconnected, his LinkedIn gone. But the damage he'd done to us, to this building, was still breathing through every cracked wall. Kenna and I moved through our days like soldiers after a battle, tired, watchful, half waiting for the next strike. One night, as I sat by the window, I saw movement across the street, a figure standing under the streetlight. Raif. Again, he wasn't hiding this time. He just stared up at me, then turned and walked away. I should have called someone, but I didn't. I was done reacting. The next morning, I went to court. It was our preliminary hearing for the defamation suit the landlord had filed against us. I wore a black blazer borrowed from Maya and a heart full of stubbornness. The courtroom was cold, full of whispers and clicking pens. The landlord finally appeared, slick suit, perfect hair, fake humility. He looked smaller in person, but his arrogance filled the room. His lawyer spoke first. My client is the victim of a targeted smear campaign led by Miss Snow, who has defamed his character and cost his company thousands in damages. I could feel Kenna tense beside me. Aaron sat behind us, recording every word. Then our lawyer stood. Your Honor, we have evidence this victim fabricated invoices, filed false documents, and attempted to forcibly evict tenants under illegal circumstances. We also have proof he conducted surveillance and intimidation against my client and her neighbors. The judge adjusted her glasses. Evidence submitted? Yes, Your Honor. We handed over the files from the basement, every page, every photo, every lie. The landlord's lawyer flipped through them, his face draining color by the second. This material was obtained illegally, he sputtered. Our lawyer smiled. So you admit it's real? The room went silent. The judge raised an eyebrow. Motion to dismiss denied. I'm referring this to the district attorney's office for review. The gavel hit. A sharp, final sound. Kenna grabbed my hand. Maya started crying. Even Iris, the eternal stoic, smiled like a woman who'd just watched a storm break. When we stepped outside, reporters swarmed us. Microphones, flashes, questions shouted from every direction. Greta, what's next for you? One asked. I looked straight into the camera and said, justice. For every tenant who's ever been silenced. The clip went viral. Again. But victory has an aftertaste. That night, as I sat alone, the adrenaline wore off. My body ached, my voice was raw, and my phone buzzed with hundreds of messages, some full of love, some full of hate. Then one came through that froze me cold. From an unknown number. A single sentence, "You think it's over?" I called Iris immediately. She sighed. They're desperate. They'll try one more time to scare you. Don't let them. But at 3 a.m., I heard something new. Not smoke, not footsteps. Paper sliding under my door, a note. In black marker, you can't fix what's already burning. When I looked outside, I saw it again, the faint red glow from the building next door. The landlord's office. Flames curling through the windows. Someone had set it on fire. And the next morning, the headline hit every screen in New York. Property Management Office burns overnight arson suspected. Underneath, a grainy photo of me taken from across the street the night before. The caption, activist Greta Snow seen near the scene hours before the fire. Kenna burst into our apartment holding her phone. Greta, they're framing you. I didn't answer. I just stared at the photo, my reflection flickering in the glass. They're trying to turn me into the villain, I whispered. Erin called moments later, her voice tight. Don't say a word to anyone. Not online, not the press. I'll fix this. But by that afternoon, cops were at my door. They didn't handcuff me, but they didn't have to. The sight of 2 officers standing in your doorway with your name on a warrant feels like enough. The neighbors watched as they led me down the stairs. Cameras clicked. Phones recorded. The girl from 3B, the fighter, was now the suspect. At the precinct, the questions came fast. Where were you between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m.? Did you have contact with anyone from the management company recently? Are you aware your fingerprints were found on a gas can outside the office? My lawyer sat beside me, calm but alert. That can was in her building's basement. It's part of the landlord's storage. The detective frowned. Convenient. Illegal, my lawyer corrected. And planted. Hours later, they released me with no charges for now. But the damage was done. Online, the comments had turned ugly. Typical activist gone too far. She burned it herself for attention. I couldn't leave the apartment without whispers following me. Kenna tried to keep me grounded. You didn't do anything wrong. I know, I said. But truth takes longer to travel than gossip. 3 days later, Erin called. You're not gonna believe this, she said. The fire wasn't arson, it was insurance fraud. They torched their own office. I blinked. You're serious? Oh, I'm serious, she said. We found emails between the landlord and his lawyer talking about recovery options after the court ruling. She paused. They were desperate to erase the records we gave the DA. It hit me all at once, the fire, the photo, the setup. They'd burned themselves to bury their crimes. Can you prove it? I asked. She grinned. Already did. City investigators raided the holding company this morning. The landlord's in custody. When the news broke, it was like a second sunrise over Brooklyn. Landlord arrested in insurance fraud and tenant harassment scandal. Our building, our battered, bruised, beautiful building, was suddenly a symbol of resistance. The DA dropped the defamation suit. The city announced funding to repair and preserve all the rent-stabilized units, and for the first time in months, the hallways of 3B were quiet not from fear, but peace. Kenna painted the doorframe fresh white. Maya started a tenant association fund. Mr. Ortiz fixed the mailboxes himself. And me? I started writing. Not an article, not a post, a story. About fear turning into courage. About voices echoing louder than walls. About how sometimes revenge isn't fire, it's justice that refuses to fade. Weeks later, Erin visited with a camera crew for a follow-up. What would you say to people who think one person can't make a difference? She asked. I smiled. I'd tell them one person can't, but a dozen scared people standing together, they can shake the city. When the camera stopped rolling, I stood by the window. The plant we'd rescued from the wreck sat in the sunlight again, green and stubborn, and across the street, the empty office stood boarded up, a monument to what happens when power meets consequence. I wasn't the same woman who'd opened that rent letter months ago. Back then, I thought revenge was about getting even. Now I knew better. Revenge was about surviving loudly enough that silence could never swallow you again. And as I watched Brooklyn hum back to life outside, I whispered to myself, not in anger, but in triumph. They thought they could erase us. I smiled. Now we're written in ink.